He exposed the government's shocking abuse of power in real time. Senator calls out the DOJ's deliberate attack on people of faith, using law enforcement as a political tool. What's been hidden from the public? The truth will be revealed. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much, Attorney General. And you have been listening to a lot of thank yous and a lot of gratitude. The reason that we're thanking each other to the extent that we are today is because we have seen in this case an incredible collaboration around the clock, in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter. We call each other, we make contact, they need a warrant, they need something, someone wants legal advice. These are the men and women who never give it up. You hear about government employees, but I don't know if you really realize what it is that they do. They are incredible, and this case is big. 4 years, 10 months, and 28 days ago, an individual placed a bomb in the vicinity of both the RNC and the DNC. And for that amount of time, that individual evaded accountability. Today, as a result of the cumulative efforts of the men and women in the FBI and the police department and the Department of Justice, we are finally able to make an arrest of an individual by the name of Brian Cole. As the Attorney General has indicated, he is arrested for transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce, as well as the attempted malicious destruction by means of explosive materials. You know, folks, this case involved millions of pieces of data. And it is a huge win because it was like finding a needle in a haystack. So much of this evidence was very specific, but a lot of it was also very general. For example, there were 233,000 black end caps of the type that were used in this case. I want you to think about the fact that the FBI had to go through the sale of every one of them to try to find commonality with an individual, along with the purchase of the pipe itself, the cap ends, the wires, the steel, and the 9-volt batteries. Every one of those had to be mined and remined to the point where we were able to then connect. And make no mistake, it was this administration, it was this president who made the decision that we were going to use all of our efforts to get it done, and get it done they did. Finally, let me say this. Today begins the formal process of accountability, where this defendant will begin his journey through the criminal justice system. And I pledge to you that the United States Attorney's Office will take this case across the finish line. Again, thank you to the incredible work of the FBI, to the Attorney General, and to our local partners as well. This is a job that I think was well done.
Thank you, President.
What you just witnessed was a monumental moment of accountability in action. This wasn't just another Senate hearing. It was a direct challenge to the current political system that has weaponized the justice system for its own agenda. The testimony that just unfolded didn't merely highlight an isolated incident. It exposed a pattern of targeting religious organizations and pro-life Americans under the guise of justice. But why? What's really going on behind the scenes? Why were churches and pregnancy care centers subjected to violent attacks while the DOJ sat idly by, doing absolutely nothing to protect these Americans? This was not an oversight. It was deliberate negligence. Hundreds of churches and centers were firebombed, and yet the Department of Justice failed to act. When those responsible for this egregious failure were questioned, they couldn't even provide an explanation because there was no investigation. There's no question here. The injustice is clear, and the question we must ask is why the government protected those committing these crimes. The statistics are staggering. Over 100 pregnancy centers and 300 churches were destroyed or attacked, with no serious consequences for the perpetrators. But when it came to pro-life demonstrators, a SWAT team was deployed, terrorizing families. Why is there such a glaring double standard? The DOJ, under the leadership of Merrick Garland, used its full force to intimidate peaceful protesters, but when it came to violent attacks on faith-based organizations, nothing happened. Does this sound like justice to you? Does this sound like the America we've been promised? The answer is no. And what's worse is that it's not just a few rogue individuals. This is a systemic issue. One of the most shocking revelations came when we uncovered the FBI's memo targeting Catholic churches. This wasn't just some mistake or one rogue field office. This was a deliberate and coordinated effort to spy on Catholic parishes, infiltrating their communities with undercover agents. The FBI's actions were a direct assault on the First Amendment. The very fact that the FBI would go so far as to use its resources to infiltrate religious organizations simply because of their faith is un-American. And the response from the Department of Justice? A lie. When former officials were asked about this, they claimed that it was the work of just one field office. But we know now that multiple field offices were involved. They lied to the American people, and it was only through the courage of a whistleblower that this scandal was exposed. This should outrage every single one of us. These actions not only go against the very core values that this country was built on, but they also show the extent to which the government has allowed itself to be hijacked by political motives. The DOJ and FBI used their power to go after citizens who expressed pro-life beliefs, but refused to protect people whose faith and beliefs were under attack. Let that sink in. How could an organization that is supposed to protect Americans instead be targeting them for their religious views? This is not just a matter of political difference. This is about using the government to punish its own citizens. And yet, in the face of such evidence, what does the Biden administration do? They continue to turn a blind eye to these abuses. They ignore the reality that under their watch, religious Americans were attacked and their constitutional rights were violated. But there's hope. There are those in Congress and in leadership positions like Ms. Bondi who are determined to end the weaponization of the DOJ. They are committed to putting a stop to this outrageous behavior and ensuring that those responsible for these abuses are held accountable. The truth is clear, and the American people deserve answers. This isn't just a political issue. This is a fight for the soul of this nation. We are witnessing the erosion of our freedoms, and it's up to each of us to stand up, speak out, and demand change. We cannot allow those in power to keep silencing those they disagree with. We cannot allow these abuses to go unchecked, and we cannot let the DOJ or FBI turn their backs on the very citizens they are meant to protect. This is a call to action. It's time for us to take back our government and hold those in power accountable. The first step in that process is sharing this video with everyone you know. It's time to let the truth be heard. Subscribe, stay loud, and demand answers. We will not be silenced. We need real change at the Justice Department. We need leadership that defends all Americans, regardless of their faith or beliefs. And we need a system that holds everyone accountable, no matter how powerful they are. We must not let this go unchallenged. The future of our democracy depends on it. Senator Sanders exposes the hypocrisy behind America's education system. While the wealthiest thrive, millions of children face homelessness and poverty. Is this the future we're building? Watch as this devastating truth is laid bare. What you just witnessed was a powerful moment where Senator Sanders dismantled the fiction we've been sold about our educational system. The reality of what's happening in America is far from the ideal narrative that politicians often want us to believe. The truth is stark. We live in a society of extremes, where the rich grow wealthier while 60% of Americans struggle to make ends meet. And the result? An education system that's rigged against the most vulnerable. Let's break this down. The senator's question wasn't just about education. It was about the root cause of our problems. We can talk about teaching, we can talk about curriculum, but the true question is, how can we expect children to thrive in schools when they come from families living paycheck to paycheck, or worse, homeless? How can teachers be expected to work miracles when the system itself is broken? The income inequality that Senator Sanders spoke about isn't just a political talking point. It's a direct attack on our future. When children of wealthier families can afford the best schools, tutors, and resources, and children from low-income backgrounds face homelessness and violence at home, is it any wonder we have such a massive achievement gap? But the real kicker comes when we consider the mind-boggling disparity in teacher pay. Senator Sanders asked a simple but crucial question. If teaching is the noblest profession, why are teachers being paid so little? The average salary of a teacher barely covers their living expenses, let alone the enormous debt that many carry from student loans. If we truly value education, we need to start by valuing the educators who spend countless hours shaping the minds of our future. Yet, we're still holding them back, offering them low wages that do not reflect the importance of their role. Let's be clear about the systemic issue here. The government is not treating education as a priority. We live in a country where teachers are expected to do the impossible with the fewest resources. The Department of Education doesn't operate on a level playing field. While wealthy families can send their children to the best schools, low-income children are often trapped in failing schools with no option for a better future. And despite this glaring inequality, the federal government is failing to address it. When asked about the future of Pell Grants, which millions of low-income students rely on for college, the Secretary of Education nominee merely gave empty promises. She couldn't commit to anything concrete, other than hopeful expansion, which means little for the students struggling to survive. And then there's the issue of the Department of Education itself. We heard the nominee, Mrs. McMahon, say that she believes in school choice. But the truth is, school choice isn't about giving low-income children a fair shot at a quality education. It's about freeing up resources for the wealthy who can already afford to send their kids to private schools. How many times do we need to hear this same rhetoric? How many more years will we let the wealthy few control the future of the many? The sad truth is that the power structures in America, particularly in education, are designed to keep the status quo intact. The wealthy continue to thrive, while the rest of us are left to fight over crumbs. The Department of Education is meant to be the great equalizer, but instead, it's become yet another tool in the hands of the elite to ensure that their children continue to have access to the best education while ours are left behind. This is the system we're stuck with, and it's not working for most of us. The wealthy few can send their children to private institutions, while the rest of America's children are left to struggle in overcrowded classrooms without the resources they desperately need. Is this the country we want? A place where your birthright determines your access to education, success, and opportunity? The question we need to ask ourselves is, what kind of society are we building? One where only the rich can succeed and the rest of us are left to struggle, with our dreams crushed under the weight of debt, poverty, and inequality. We have to demand change, and we have to demand accountability from those in power. No one should be above the law, especially not those who are holding our children's future hostage for their own benefit. It's time to stop pretending like the system is working. It's time to stop accepting excuses. We need real solutions, and we need them now. We cannot afford to wait any longer. This is about our children's futures, and we cannot afford to let this continue. Here's the truth. The only way we're going to fix this is by coming together, raising our voices, and demanding that change happen. We cannot keep letting the system fail those who need it most. This is the time to act. Share this video, subscribe, and stay loud. Together, we can make sure this is the last generation that has to fight for basic rights like education, opportunity, and fairness. He exposed the relentless pursuit of justice in a case that went cold for 4 long years. What's the real story behind this bombshell arrest? The truth behind this explosive case is about to be revealed. Stay tuned. What you just witnessed was not just a criminal case being solved, it was the story of a massive government effort, one that spanned 4 years, 10 months, and 28 days, all culminating in the arrest of Brian Cole, an individual who planted a bomb near both the RNC and DNC, evading justice for years. This wasn't just a simple investigation, it was a colossal undertaking by the FBI, the Department of Justice, and local law enforcement, all working around the clock, facing a seemingly impossible task. And today we see the fruits of their labor, the arrest of Brian Cole and the promise of justice. But as we dig deeper, it becomes clear that this arrest represents so much more than just the capture of one criminal. It is a testament to the power of persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. For nearly 5 years, the authorities had to comb through millions of pieces of data, including 233,000 black end caps, each one representing a potential lead. They sifted through records of pipe purchases, steel sales, and battery transactions, each step a painstaking effort to connect the dots and bring this dangerous individual to justice. Imagine the scale of this operation, the manpower required to comb through such vast amounts of information. The authorities weren't just looking for a needle in a haystack, they were searching through a haystack that kept growing and changing. Yet, despite the complexity of this case, the dedication of those involved never wavered. These are the unsung heroes who spend countless hours, sometimes in the dead of night, to ensure that justice prevails. But let's not ignore the broader picture here. This case is not just about one arrest. It's about a system that continues to function despite the constant attempts to undermine it. This is the same system that some want to dismantle or ignore when it doesn't serve their political agenda. Yet here we see a tangible victory, one that exposes the power of accountability. The criminal justice system, despite its flaws, worked in this case, and it worked precisely because of the tireless efforts of the FBI, the local police, and the Department of Justice. They didn't give up. They didn't stop when the going got tough. They kept pushing forward because they understood the importance of this case, not just for the victims, but for the integrity of the system itself. What does this say about the power dynamics at play here? We often hear about how the justice system fails certain people, or how the government can't be trusted to protect its citizens. And while those concerns are not entirely unfounded, this case proves that justice is not a one-sided effort. Yes, institutions can be corrupt, but they can also be the vehicles for real change when the right people are in charge. This arrest wasn't a fluke. It was the result of a deliberate decision made by this administration to pursue accountability, no matter how long it took. Now, we must consider the victims of this attack. We're talking about more than just property damage. This was an attempt to terrorize political organizations, to create chaos where there was order. This was an attack on democracy itself, an attempt to disrupt the core values of a free society. But the real victims aren't just those who were directly impacted by the bombing. This attack affected all Americans. When one individual attempts to destabilize the very institutions that hold our country together, the impact is felt far and wide. This isn't just about a bomb or an arrest. This is about the preservation of our way of life. And in this case, justice was served. However, as we celebrate this victory, we must ask, what does this arrest mean for the future? Will this be the last of such attacks, or will it only serve as a reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist within our society? We can't allow ourselves to be complacent and think that just because one criminal was captured, the threats have been eliminated. This case is proof that while justice can prevail, it requires constant vigilance, constant effort, and constant engagement from both the government and the people. Now, let's talk about accountability. This arrest is a victory, but it's not the end. The true test of justice will come in the coming months and years as this defendant moves through the criminal justice system. Will the system continue to work as it should, or will it be influenced by outside forces? We cannot afford to let this case become just another footnote in the annals of history. We must ensure that everyone involved in this case is held accountable, from the individual who planted the bomb to the people who may have helped him evade capture for so long. No one should be above the law. No one should escape justice. The message is clear. Accountability is non-negotiable. When our institutions work together, when the right people are in charge, we can see real, tangible results. This case shows that even the most complicated cases, the most difficult challenges, can be solved when we stay committed to doing what's right. But we also have to ask ourselves, are we ready to fight for justice in every case, not just the ones that make headlines? Are we ready to make sure that everyone who tries to disrupt our society will face the consequences? This victory is just the beginning. It's time for us to stay loud, stay vigilant, and demand justice. Share this video, subscribe, and stay involved. We will not rest until every single individual who threatens our democracy faces the full force of the law. Accountability must be our priority, and we must keep pushing forward, no matter how difficult the journey.